everyone. Good Saturday evening. We have finally reached February here, 2025. It's finally a weekend here, Gus, where we're not dealing with an ice storm or a snowstorm or any sort of winter weather. It was nice, clear, sunny here in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the United States. And Gus, I'm assuming it is still warm and sunny and down in Brazil in the middle of the summer.
Yeah, I'm here in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, and it's very rainy. What a rainy week. Today, especially now at night, it's raining, but still very warm, very summer weather. Yeah, but yeah, it's finally February. Uh, we're reaching, um, I say the end, almost the end of the football season. Of course, tomorrow it's what we everybody call the big game, and for those who I guess want to promote the final of the National Football League, and I want to start the pod differently. So the term "big game" is because the Super Bowl only can be promoted by those who have the rights on, right?
Correct. So only those that have NFL rights can talk about the Super Bowl. So, like for example, like all the stores, right? They have all their promotions. Like, oh, well, look at our TV sales for the big game. Here's our food specials for the big game. Like, if churches want to have like watch-alongs or whatever, and they have to do it for the big game, because everyone knows what we're talking about. But the NFL is very protective of the trademark of the Super
Yeah.
Bowl.
That's a great point. Shout out to my friend Gustavo Barbudo. Said something when let's talk about this podcast. Finally, Rio Branco won first win of the 2026 season. Definitely talk about that. It came in almost a buzzer beater. There's no such thing as a buzzer beater in soccer, but was in the stoppage time. And he's watching here in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil. My grandma Emilia watching us as well. She was at the game in Decio Vita Stadium. But speaking of buzzer beater, what a game down in North Carolina. Of course, we're following Tennessee, Kentucky in the first half, 3 minutes to be played. At least here in my TV is 36-29. Kentucky is about to shoot a free throw. But down in North Carolina, one of the all-time classics, Duke and North Carolina feels like never disappoints in terms of game, and this one also for the ages, right, Nick?
Absolutely. And what's crazy here is Duke led the entire time. Like, North Carolina did not lead in this game until the last 0.4 seconds of this game. Duke had a 13-point lead in the second half and had a 6-point lead with 3 minutes left. They got outscored 9-0. If you remember to the end of last year, Gus, in the Final Four against Houston, Duke went out in a very similar way against Houston, where they had the lead late against the Cougars and they fell apart in the end. So this is now kind of turning into a pattern for the Blue Devils, where yes, they have one of the most talented, if not the most talented roster in the country, but we're seeing in these high pressure situations, pattern is starting to emerge with Duke, where when they were under Coach K, they would be able to push through and be able to make the clutch plays in prime time. This Duke team under John Shire, yes, very talented, very sound. They got some work to do in terms of winning in the big games, right? Because obviously for Duke, no game is bigger than playing North Carolina during the regular season, and it's the closest you're going to get until you're in the tournament. So if I'm a Duke fan, that very much concerns me, seeing the way that Duke kind of fell apart there towards the end, making uncharacteristic mistakes. I mean, you have obviously a very talented roster, so you still have hopes of winning a national championship, but still not what you wanted to see if you're a Duke fan, obviously against your arch rival. Let's go, Nate. Sorry. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about the Vols here in a second, but
What a M1! What a M1!
yeah, Nate freaking admit, man. Okay, I have some crow to eat when it comes to him when we talk about the Vols, but to wrap it up back on Duke, though, I would be very concerned if I'm a Duke fan, because if you want to win a national championship, you got to win at least one or two games in the tournament towards the end in clutch time. You're not just going to blow everyone out. Like Florida had to win several games. So they had to come back against Texas Tech. They had to outlast Auburn. They had to win in a classic against Houston national title game. Can Duke do that? I don't know.
And the thing is, of course, has been, I'll say, uh, almost, 4 years since that all-time classic in the Final Four, probably the biggest North Carolina Duke game. And though that kind of win brings up uh, the North Carolina saying they own Duke, because you know that game will be always remembered, and that kind of win feeds up that we own you guys.
Right. And, Duke did beat North Carolina out of 3 times last year, but it does feel like North Carolina gets the absolute biggest wins in this series, which
Yeah.
has to really irritate, which has to irritate the folks in Durham. So definitely, we'll be curious to see how Duke responds to this. Obviously, I expect them to still be at worst a 2 seed. I mean, they're probably going to end up being a 1 seed when everything's said and done. But obviously, it has to be a frustrating win for North Duke. And for North Carolina, this is massive. I think especially for Hubert Davis, because he was increasingly getting more and more criticism from UNC, because since that Cinderella run to the national title game where they ended Coach K's career, North Carolina really hasn't done a lot in March. You remember a few years ago, they had the 1 seed and got upset by Alabama in the Sweet 16. And then they really didn't do much at all last year. So for North Carolina, I think there's a lot of pressure on Hubert Davis. But hey, that win was huge. I mean, they stormed the court twice. So that's a huge win for Hubert Davis.
Oh yeah, for sure. Beating your arch rival on a buzzer beater, it's something that feeds you on the season, and definitely can be a kind of like a momentum change for the folks in Tar Heels.
100%, Gus. But I do want to talk about the game that's going on right now here. This Tennessee at Kentucky right now. It is a 12-point game. The Vols 45, Kentucky 33. And I will say this: the last time Tennessee played Kentucky, we also had a double-digit lead in blue, and Kentucky has pulled off several rallies. So this game is far from over. But I do want to say, though, I owe an apology to Nate Ament. I've been very harsh on him this year on this podcast, but he has become the player I thought he was going to be. He looks freaking amazing out there tonight. We just saw that play that he made, Gus. He can shoot threes. He is more aggressive. He's getting to the rim. He just seems much more comfortable. He knows what he's doing. And I think, perhaps early on I underestimated, how much of a transition this was going to be for him, being the fact that he's only 18 years old, right? He's playing against a lot of guys who are 3, 4, 5 years older than him. And, it doesn't matter, right? That he would be a top 10 pick right now. He's still got to develop into that. And he has become the go-to guy. And for this Tennessee team, if he's going to play like this, it changed our trajectory completely, because we went from not having a go-to guy the first half of this year to now it's Nate Ament. And Nate Ament has every bit of potential that Dalton Knecht had, that Chaz Lanier had last year. And to be fair, he probably has a higher ceiling. I mean, he does have a way higher ceiling than both of those players. Now, does he have a higher ceiling right now over the next couple of weeks? That is to remain to be seen, right? Because he's way younger right now than what Dalton Knecht was when he was Tennessee. Because Knecht was 22 when he was going on his run with Tennessee. And, Ament's only 18. But Ament, has all NBA potential compared to a guy like Knecht, who is an NBA role player. And if Ament can throw up 20, 25 plus a night, Tennessee has a chance against anyone. Then it really just comes down to what everyone else does. Because really the X factor outside of that, if you can count on Ament, is Jacoby Gillespie, who I've grown to love and hate, because I think, he's not scared to shoot the ball, which you want. When he gets hot, he is on flames. The problem is, though, half the time he's very cold. He's missing everything. And we're asking him to play point guard, which is not his natural position. He's naturally a shooting guard, and he makes a lot of turnover, has a lot of mistakes. And really, if we're going to be successful, we're going to have to depend on Gillespie being smart with the basketball, which I am concerned at some point is going to cost us in the regular season or the postseason. But, tonight he's playing pretty well. And, obviously those are the two main scorers. And from there, I think a lot of it comes down to what your front court does. And I think guys like Dwayne Brown, they're continuing to develop. Of course, JP Estrella, keeping him healthy is huge. Felix Akpara, we've got him back tonight. He was out with injury for a couple of games. Jalen Carey, he's an enforcer down there. That guy is just everywhere. Mint right now has 19 points in the first half. But kind of looking back at some of the games leading up to this, the Vols absolutely dominated Ole Miss in the second half the other night. Nate Ament had 26 points in the second half against Ole Miss. It was unbelievable. It was like watching Dalton Connect 2 years ago. And I'm like, okay, this like shows me that Tennessee has a different gear, that we have that potential to make the second weekend, depending on what the bracket looks like. And we'll pull up some bracketology in a moment to kind of see what that situation looks like as we are about to go to halftime here. 47-33, the score heading into the break. And then before that, last Saturday's game against Auburn, it was a very solid game that Tennessee controlled for most of it. Auburn tried to make it interesting towards the end, but they were able to beat Stephen Pearl. And then we didn't get to talk about the Georgia game last week, guys. I don't know if you got to see the end of that Georgia game, so basically Georgia was down by 3, 86-83, and their point guard, he holds the ball for like 15 seconds, just dribbling around, and he, instead of trying to take a game-tying free in overtime, he drives to the rim and scores a 2 with like 0.7 seconds left. It was one of the dumbest plays I've ever seen in basketball, but it helped Tennessee win, so I wasn't mad at it. But hey, ever since we blew that game against Kentucky, it does feel like that game maybe flipped a light switch for the Vols, Gus. I think, even though that was really infuriating when that happened, it made me lose like some confidence in like how good this team possibly could be. I think the way the team has responded since then has been really good, and now hopefully they take the lessons they learned from that first game and apply it here to the second half.
What I feel like this Tennessee team could be interesting in March is that something I always mention throughout the coverage of Tennessee basketball, from Rocksall Sports to our podcast, is that I always felt that Rick Barnes teams always peaked in late January and early to mid February. That's what I felt the peak of this team was. But this year maybe it's different. Maybe they're gonna reach their peak in March because they had a bumpy start. They had some games where they had issues, and Rick Barnes is tweaking this team and possibly finding their peak in March. And because how many times Tennessee had a great regular season, and then all disappointment came in March.
Right. And you're exactly right about that. And because I'm so used to them just doing really well in the regular season, so seeing them have some issues here, it's the first time in a while where it feels like this regular season isn't really going smoothly. But to your point, it might be for the best, because we know this team now has gone through adversity. We know they're battle tested. And the team that is going to be out there in March looks way different than the team that had the issues in early January and portions of December. And that's
and and if Rick Barnes is able to do that, he will prove that he can be a good coach of getting a team to evolve from the mid to the end of regular season and getting their absolute best in the playoffs where it matters. Because again, college basketball, the regular season, it's kind of like a marathon. Like it's so funny because college basketball is like running a marathon to qualify for the 100-meter sprint.
Yeah, I mean that's a great comparison, because it's like for example, like Purdue a few years ago, they were the 1 seed. No one remembers they were the 1 seed. Everyone remembers they lost to Farley Dickinson.
Or when Virginia lost to UMBC.
Yeah. No one cares that they won all those games in a regular season.
Yeah. Of course, the regular season still have like a marathon, can't be sloppy. You have to at least qualify. Once you're in, then it's 100-meter sprint. Then it's you go from a long run that you have to keep your pace to a short run where you have to give it all in a short time.
Absolutely. So I really hope the Vols can finish this out here. That way we can split the series here with Kentucky. And that it would really put Tennessee in a very good spot because the upcoming schedule for Tennessee, or at least over the next 2 games, is not too difficult. I believe this week we have Mississippi State and LSU, who are both towards the bottom of the league. And if the Vols win tonight, that would put them at 7-3 in the conference. Yeah. So on Wednesday we play at Mississippi State. Next Saturday we're back home against LSU. And then the game after that's Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma, to be fair, they did upset Vanderbilt on the road this week, but you could potentially, if you take care of business in all those games, you're 10-3 in conference play. And then you're talking about, making a push for the top of the conference and, getting a double bye for the, conference tournament. And right now, you're only a game back of the lead, which is Florida at Texas A&M, who are actually playing each other right now. Florida's up 32-21 in that game. So whoever wins that game will be 8-2. But the loser of that game will be 7-3. So Tennessee, if they win this game, will be tied for second in the league. So, the Vols certainly have a shot to get back into that title race, especially with Vanderbilt losing today at home to Oklahoma. And, but I think it's safe to say, just looking at bracketology, that unless outside of Tennessee having a complete disaster, Tennessee should be solidly in the tournament, which, as you said, that is the ultimate goal. And it's a good sign as a program when even a year that feels frustrating and oh yeah, Tennessee is solidly in the tournament. But anyway, guys, so let's take a quick look at bracketology. I'd like to do this every episode. So right now, Arizona is still your overall top seed. They absolutely destroyed Oklahoma State today. They are still one of 2 undefeated teams in the country. The other undefeated team, do you know who the other undefeated team is?
Great question.
They're a team in the MAC.
Ohio?
They're in Ohio. It's Miami of Ohio.
Miami of Ohio. Wow.
They
don't like to be called Miami of Ohio. Did you know that?
I do know that. And honestly, with the way they're playing, I think they deserve just to be called Miami. The Miami Redhawks. They are 24-0. They beat Marshall on the road today. Right now, the last team in it are the Buckeyes of Ohio State. They have a huge game tomorrow against number 3 Michigan. So
wow, so,
Buckeyes.
And Ohio State, Michigan, no matter the sport, I guess it's a big game.
Yeah, I just want to say too, whoever scheduled this week, someone decided we win all the rivalry games this week. We had Alabama Auburn earlier today, which was a fantastic game. Alabama survived on the road, won I think that game by 4 points. Of course, you had Duke, North Carolina, which was a classic. You had
Tennessee, Kentucky.
Tennessee, Kentucky. You got Ohio State, Michigan. Another great game on right now that I kind of put on multi-view while we wait on Tennessee to come back. We have Illinois at Michigan State. So Illinois is number 5. You might remember Tennessee at that Illinois kind of waxed them in Nashville back in December. They're tied at number 10 Michigan State, 56-56. So there's some good basketball on tonight across the league. Across the country, California is the first team out. So you can kind of see where we're at here. Indiana's a 9. Alabama's a 5 seed against Liberty. So Miami of Ohio, the undefeated team, is a number 11. And I guess the question is, when you take a look at Miami of Ohio, if they were to go undefeated until they lost their conference title game, would they deserve an at-large bid? Because that's the question. I'm going to pull up their schedule so you can see exactly who they've played. So I'm going to...
It's a tricky question because it's all about, it's going back to funny about, what we always talked about in college football, the strength of schedule or even the the strength of conference.
Right. So here's who they played. In the non-con, they played Old Dominion, Trinity Christian of Illinois, which I'm thinking is like a D2 team, Air Force, Mercyhurst, which I think is like just a new D1 team, Arkansas Pine Bluff, which is routinely one of the worst teams, Indiana East, again D2 team, Maine, UNC Asheville, Eastern
Which is in the SoCon.
Wright State, who we've played in basketball, Ball State, who's a conference opponent, Milligan, Bowling.
Go back to Mulligan. I like how they put this, I don't know, a female athlete where it's supposed to be the symbol.
Yeah, because I think they're not a D1 team. Akron, Western Michigan, Toledo, Central Michigan, Buffalo, Kent State, UMass, Northern Illinois, Buffalo, Marshall. And you can see the rest of their games are just MAC opponents. So they've not played a single like P4 opponent this entire season. So like if Miami goes like 30-0 and like they lose their conference championship game, do they deserve to be in is the question. You know?
It's a hard question because then you go back to what we discussed in college football because, you know, somebody, for example, Ohio State be left out and be like, hey, we play, you know, ranked teams, we play tough teams and we lost. And, you know, we had an undefeated team that literally scheduled teams that don't even have a logo. You know, they play D2, D3. Then I guess probably you can be the same kind of discussion with that college football. Oh, incentivize, you know, scheduling easy. But in basketball, I think it's more relative than football because in basketball, you know, you have so many spots, then I guess you can't be that, you know, particular about.
Right. Like there's no reason to not schedule at least a couple of good teams. And so this is the KenPom rankings. Miami here is at 85 at 24-0. So like look at them. Literally, there's an 11-13 Notre Dame team, which this computer would rank above this undefeated Miami of Ohio team. You can see like 12-11 Arizona State, 11-12 Wake Forest, 11-12 Ole Miss. All these teams are considered better according to the metrics than the Miami Redhawks, because look at the strength of schedule here. 316th in the country.
Yeah.
And look at defense. 347, Gus. There are, if I scroll down, 365 teams. So you literally can't have a much easier schedule than Miami of Ohio. I mean, being undefeated is worth something. But outside of winning their championship, I just don't know if they'd really deserve being in the conference title game. And just for reference, I just want to show you this. The Vols are at 17. In the past couple of years, they've usually been in the top 10. Here in this metric, you can see Arizona by far is the number one team with Michigan, Duke, Illinois, and Iowa State. But back to our bracket here. Gonzaga's a free, although Gonzaga suffered a really bad loss the other night at Portland on the road. So they finally got one game, which I mean, hey, if you lose one game like that, it happens. You know? Like you see, Kentucky right now is a 7 seed. Nebraska, the 2 seed. Obviously, just a magical season for them. I'm going to be fascinated to see what happens because you know they've never won a tournament game. So we'll see what they do there as a 2 seed. So
do you think if they maybe even go to March and win 1, 2, even 3 games, maybe there'll be a discussion? Oh, you know, maybe Nebraska is gonna be more basketball, like something the Vols had that discussion back in, remember, 2018, 2019.
Oh, 100% at this point. So, I mean, that's, you know, because I don't know when football is going to come back, especially after the way the whole Dylan Raiola situation went down. They lost him. They had to go get Notre Dame's backup quarterback. It just the whole situation with Nebraska is just kind of sad, because I don't really see how they're going to truly come back to being a top tier program in football.
Yeah.
I see Vandy's at a 4 right now. Arkansas's at a 6. Purdue's at a 3. Man, I would be the biggest Austin P fan ever if this happened.
I like how there's a lot of Tennessee schools in, UT Martin, Austin B.
Yeah, Chattanooga right now would not be one of them. They're not having a great season. But hey, remember, when it comes to those mid-majors, all that really matters is the conference tournament. So Chattanooga can get hot in Nashville. Of course, there's our favorite Cinderella right there. UMBC. How nervous do you think Michigan fans would be if they saw UMBC?
Oh, but it's probably gonna. I mean, it's a completely different roster than the one that upset Virginia. I mean, can Lightning strike twice?
Right. Well, it's like, remember 2 years ago we played St. Peter's in the first round, and I remember being nervous, so nervous for that game. Like, oh god, can they do this to us? And I'm like, and St. Peter's team had nothing compared to what they had back in the 2022 run to the Elite Eight. Of course, North Carolina, they're at a 5. Remember, this is before their win today, so they're probably up to a 4 seed now. Of course, you have Louisville down here, a 6 seed. And Louisville's an interesting team because they had a decent win today at Wake Forest. They've struggled a little bit recently, but they still have a lot of talent. So we'll see what they do. Of course, Florida is a team that's really hot right now. They're up by now 20-something on Texas A&M. They're about to take the sole possession lead of the SEC. Right now, what Todd Golden has built down there in Gainesville, they're the best program right now in the SEC until further notice. Winning a national title and then coming back, this year to be the top team in the league. They threw 100 points last week in Alabama.
The Gator fans definitely love their basketball team because all the pain that the football team brought, they need that.
Yes. Also, look at this. What if this happened? What if we got Iowa State in the second round?
Oh, that would be one of those really great rivalry games.
Yes. Then you see down here, you'd have Duke, who I think will still probably be on the 1 line. And then here's Tennessee. So Tennessee's moved up to a 5 seed with Tulsa, Michigan State, and Troy.
Oh, Tom Izzo.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised Michigan State's a 4. I feel like they should be higher than that.
But I think if Tennessee, wins Kentucky, then probably can be considered for a 4th seed, or maybe
probably not. As I said, of course the wins that are really pushing us are definitely Houston's the main one that's pushing us, but Louisville having that win is big. The wins against Texas is pretty big. Texas A&M. If we can get this one against Kentucky, that would be another nice one to have as well, especially on the road. Of course, wins at Georgia as well are good. So, especially the way Amit's playing here. hey.
I like press the Tennessee. I like to see the little graphic.
Oh, let's see what we got here.
Yeah.
That's our seed projection history. So they've hung around a 4 to a 6. So Loanardi.
Look at the line. Look at from the red, the last red. Look what I'm saying. Even the graphics point out something I've been telling you. So look at the graphic is going up. So even the projection said about this team peaking on the right time.
Yeah, and of course, and look what they got a free throw there. So I'm gonna go back out there. Also, another Tennessee team there, ETSU, who'd be the projected team out of the Southern Conference against Kansas. Then St. Louis, you got Georgia down there as a 10 seed, Illinois, and Charleston. You can see the buys down here. St. Mary's, Georgia, both LA schools, just kind of hovering around the bubble. And then last one, you've got the Miami Hurricanes, Texas, New Mexico, and Ohio State. So what have we got Miami versus Miami in the tournament?
And it's so funny, literally the national championship for football, the schools that went for the national championship in football are hanging there in basketball.
Yeah, because Indiana was a 9
But,
seed in Miami.
yeah, that's true. No, but I forgot. But I mean,
Indiana did get a big one in overtime today over Wisconsin, so they did get a win there. Let's see, Texas, New Mexico, Ohio State. So your first 4 teams out right now are California, San Diego State, Virginia Tech, Oklahoma State, who just got they lost by like 50 points today to Arizona. It was not a good night for the Cowboys. It's the Seton Hall, Missouri, TCU, Baylor. And then you can see the conference breakdown here. You got the Big Ten with 11, SEC with 10. Remember last year the SEC, I think, had 14 teams in the tournament. So the SEC is not quite as deep this year, but they're still pretty good. ACC with 8, the Big 12 with 7, the West Coast Conference with 3, Big East with 3. Of course, the Big East still not doing particularly hot. You can see it's just Connecticut, St. John's, and Villanova. Not even Creighton or Seton Hall are in. And then the rest of these teams were just not very good. I wonder what happened to Marquette. Marquette's usually been pretty good. They're 9-15 this year. That's not a good look for them. The West Coast Conference here, you can see it's Santa Clara, Gonzaga, and St. Mary's. So that's just a brief look there. Just what are your thoughts overall thoughts seeing all of that?
I mean, of course, it'd be interesting if Iowa and Iowa State would be in the same kind of first round bracket. The first and second round bracket, and what a layup! Tennessee up by 13 against Kentucky. But yeah, I wonder also where Tennessee is going to land. Is going to be now in Philly, and how hard of a matchup, especially for the second round, is going to be.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, with all the conference tournaments and stuff, that will all change. But that's just an idea of where we all sit. Really quick on the ladies' side of things, Lady Vols have had a kind of a weird week. The Lady Vols, they went to UConn in that rivalry match. They won this game last year, and they retired at halftime. It was a very entertaining first half. But UConn just absolutely annihilated us in the second half. We lost by 30. Just not great. The talent difference was very substantial. But the Lady Vols came back and did beat Georgia in overtime. So that was a good one to come back with. However, they got to go to South Carolina tomorrow. Another tough game. Hopefully, the Vols will play better in this one than they did at UConn last week, especially in the second half. It's clear, especially considering the whole Ruby Whitehorn situation, that this team is not completely there yet for Kim Caldwell. So I wouldn't go into next month expecting a deep run for the ladies.
Yeah, I think Kim Caldwell is still trying to find the best team with all the issues they've been having. So great test for them tomorrow against still one of the reigning dynasties in women's college basketball. The South Carolina Gamecocks.
Yeah, but I will say the ladies team that does have championship aspirations is our softball team. They began their season yesterday, of course, led by the best pitcher in college softball in Carlin Pickens. They are preseason ranked number 4. And they are already off to a 4-0 start. They beat BYU, Liberty, Rutgers, and Boston College. They are playing Oregon right now. So and they beat Oregon 2-0. So they are now 5-0. 5-0 on the season. And they've only let up, I want to say, one run. Yeah, they've only let up they've let up 2 runs in 5 games. Which that's pretty impressive, especially when you're looking at you beat number 5 Oregon, they beat number 21 Liberty. This team has incredibly high expectations, and obviously the question is, can they overcome Oklahoma? Can they overcome Texas? Can they overcome Texas Tech? When you get to May, because those are the big boys, the big teams here in softball. And it feels like, especially with having a senior in Carlin Pickens, literally the woman with the fastest pitch ever. if Tennessee's ever going to do it in softball, this has to be the year.
Yeah, great expectation, especially for the Lady Vols. Now it's only it's not the couple, right? The weeklies.
Yeah, it's just Karen now. Ralph retired, so it's just Karen Weekly. It's just as the solo head coach now. With, I mean, it's our, obviously, the greatest pitcher ever for the softball team always has been Monica Abbott. But I think when it's all said and done, Carlin Pickens might be better potentially. I'm not a softball expert. I'm not going to pretend to be, but Carlin Pickens is her. Like, she is amazing. So definitely, because Monica Abbott did lead the Lady Vol softball team in 2007 to the national championship game. So maybe Carlin Pickens can do the same thing. I think it'll be a very fun season for the softball team. All right, Gus, let's talk some Super Bowl. And the Super Bowl is tomorrow night in Santa Clara, California. And of course, there's always a lot of fun stuff when it comes to Super Bowl, right? Even before the game. So I always like to talk about some of the fun stuff around the Super Bowl. The food, first and foremost. We all get together. We all like the food that people like to eat. Gus, do you have any fun food plans for the Super Bowl?
I'm gonna be honest, Nick. When I was in the United States, definitely that's something that always struck me. How the Super Bowl is beyond sporting event. It's a cultural phenomenon in America. And for example, I'll give this example. My ex-girlfriend's family, they they are not. They weren't big sport fans. They occasionally watch some games, but when it comes Super Bowl, they always made plans for food. I like wings and pizza. That's my great combination. Wings and pizza. I always had that. With my brother, then my ex girlfriend's family, and of course for me, my memorable Super Bowl. I not wanting to change the topic, but for me, it has to be the Falcons Patriots, because that one was the only one I watched. With the atmosphere, was a watch party in Atlanta, Georgia, in the College Football Hall of Fame, and of course I was excited, especially when it comes to 28-3, because I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna see the city erupt. It's gonna be a crazy celebration. I'm gonna be here, and then everything happened, and the Patriots won. And I remember leaving the College Football Hall of Fame, walking in downtown Atlanta, and it was silence. Silence. I'd never seen that city so silent. So, you could hear a pin drop. You could hear, like, a car's driving. It was so silent. It felt like a city was, mourning that loss. So that Super Bowl I'll never forget.
I mean, I don't think Atlanta ever truly recovered from that. I know the Braves have won a Super Bowl. Georgia's won 2 national titles.
The Braves won the World Series.
I mean, until the Falcons win a Super Bowl, they'll never truly recover from that. Because that is the single most brutal loss in American sports history.
Oh yeah, I saw that firsthand. I was walking with my brother, and then I made a comment. I was like, I never seen this city so silent. I mean, of course, and seeing those fans leaving the watch party, all in disbelief. I even took a picture with a little boy crying, and the franchise never recovered, because they has been like 10 years, and they never been even close to make that that point. But for me, and how about you? What do you Super Bowl that you remember that you?
Well, the most random one I can definitely remember was when I watched the end of the Eagles Patriots in 2017 in a Waffle House. We were coming back from a conference in St. Louis, and we were driving back. We were in like Cookeville, I think. Stopped there and watched the end of that in Waffle House. So just the most random Super Bowl that I can remember. Instead of your normal wings and pizza and the chips and stuff like that, I was eating waffles while watching the Super Bowl. It was quite
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah, that's true. That's something you never thought. Eating waffles in a Waffle House watching the Super Bowl.
100%. But tomorrow, definitely wings and chips are on the menu here for a normal.
I might have a pizza because tomorrow, and it's kind of funny. This literally the same time the Super Bowl is happening. There's Corinthians and Palmeiras, always a big classic. So I'll probably be watching both, eating pizza with my grandma.
Oh, yes. That definitely got a double screen that, the multi view
Yeah.
going in effect. And of course, obviously, another big part of the Super Bowl is commercials, like, and I know the thing that irritates me is a lot of these companies will put their commercials up now before the Super Bowl to like preview them and stuff or whatever. Like literally a commercial for the commercial, which is dumb. Like I don't watch any of them. Like I want to be surprised. Like, 'cause
Yeah, that was the most. That was the fun part of the Super Bowl, the surprise. People were guessing, who's gonna be in, and of course, there are even memorable ones from companies that even don't exist anymore. I always remember the Pets.com one. If you leave me now, you take. That was a cute one.
yeah, M&M's, the sexy know it is one of the funny ones. Like the Peyton Manning Snickers one is fantastic. Uh,
The Budweiser after 9/11, that was the one that people tend to remember.
Yeah, and then the problem was there was a while there where it felt like a lot of the commercials were super duper political, like for no reason. And that really is where it's what I'm fascinated about these commercials tomorrow. Like how many of them are just fun versus like uber political, especially given the current political climate of the US. Um, so I think there's a lot of angst on the outside there. So I'm curious how companies handle that.
Yeah. And speaking of, uber political, talk about the lead for the Super Bowl halftime show.
Yes, Bad Bunny. Now, I will say this: when it comes to Bad Bunny, I don't really know a lot of his songs. I mean, because the most obvious thing out of the way, he's primarily most of his songs are in Spanish. So I don't. It's really hard for me to distinguish the songs apart. Now, I have listened to some of the songs, and to be honest, they're groovy. They're kind of. I like the vibe of them. Uh, and I have some foreign language songs in my playlist. So I think I'm curious to see what it's like visually. Now, obviously, the elephant in the room is last week at the Grammys, Bad Bunny won the album of the year, and he made some comments regarding the ongoing immigration enforcement efforts in America under President Trump with ICE, and obviously all the stuff that's happened in Minnesota. And if you watch my work with News 12 in Chattanooga, I've covered various viewpoints on this whole topic.
Yeah, and speaking of which, did you saw there's going to be an alternative Super Bowl halftime show?
Yes, the Turning Point USA, which is obviously that's the organization created by Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated back in September. Kid Rock is leading that one, which
which TV station is going to be on?
Well, that's going to be on YouTube. So honestly, I think what would be funny is to live stream both. Have the Bad Bunny on the TV and like watch the Kid Rock one on your phone just for the pure chaos of it. Because
I think that's counterproductive. I feel like Turning Point USA should have partnered with OAN, Newsmax, I don't know, some TV station, because people are not gonna, remember. Oh, there's the conservative version of the, Super Bowl halftime show, and put it on TV and stuff. People are like,
subscribed to their YouTube channel or subscribed to OAN or Newsmax. I mean, I think the people who are gonna want to watch that show know the show is coming on, and they're gonna go and tune into the show. Like, now, how many viewers are they going to get compared to Bad Bunny? I mean, I'm sure Bad Bunny will get significantly more viewers. And I'm not exactly a Kid Rock fan, not necessarily for political reasons, but I don't think he's that great of a musical artist.
And also, a lot of people leave their TV on, probably even on mute or something during the halftime. So it's kind of unfair to compare, because a lot of people they tend to count for the ratings, not necessarily going to be focused on the concert.
Yeah. And I'm curious to see, are there people who are going to just switch off the TV to switch it over? Because I mean, I think a lot of people are just going to pull up on their phones, I would assume. Now, granted, you got a certain segment of folks who will say they're going to boycott the Super Bowl, but they've been screaming they're going to boycott the Super Bowl for 15 years now, and yet the ratings go up every single year. So clearly, either the NFL's just getting a lot of new fans, or people just aren't boycotting the Super Bowl. Which, I mean, here's the thing: if you're going to come out and say you're going to come out and boycott the Super Bowl, I'm gonna not believe you, because I don't like for me. Like, if I'm going to boycott something, I don't come out and announce I'm going to boycott it. I just silently stop watching or stop listening or whatever, because it's attention seeking behavior to be like, oh, I'm boycotting X thing, like, oh, look at me, I'm not going to watch what everyone else is watching. you know it's just and obviously bad. Would I have picked Bad Bunny if I were running the Super Halftime Show? No. I mean, there's a lot of other artists I would love to see do the halftime show. Obviously, Kendrick Lamar was last year, and admittedly, I didn't love it at the time. I went back and rewatched it, and actually, I think it was better on rewatch than when I watched it live. But there's a lot of other artists I would rather see here than Bad Bunny, just because I don't really listen to Bad Bunny.
I don't understand why the NFL uh, don't choose Taylor Swift. Such an obvious pick. Like
Oh, I'm assuming the situation here is it's Taylor Swift's when she wants it. Because I'm assuming if Taylor Swift went to the NFL and said, I want to do it, the NFL would let her do it. But the thing is, Taylor Swift doesn't really need to do the Super Bowl. And I'm sure she's kind of either A, she doesn't have the energy to do it, or B, she doesn't want to do it until she has an idea, right? Because I'm assuming if Taylor's going to do it, she's going to want to make sure that she puts on a show that's as good as Prince, Lady Gaga, some of the other classics that we've seen, Beyonce, like some of the other classics we've seen.
But I feel like or at least maybe it was, maybe it's not that anymore. But the Super Bowl halftime show was the biggest, performance an artist can do that was going to be, broadcast on TV.
Yeah,
maybe it's not that anymore, but I don't think Taylor Swift wanted to want to say, hey, I don't feel like doing the Super Bowl halftime show. But I mean, the NFL, I think, is missing the opportunity to capitalize on the artist who's literally been, with the brand, especially dating one of the athletes,
Well, I mean, it's also worth saying that Bad Bunny literally is the biggest artist in the world. If you look at streaming, I mean, he has more streams than literally anyone. Now, for the average, for the for the non-Spanish speaking American, yeah, a lot of us don't listen to Bad Bunny, which you think of as the core of the NFL audience, but also the NFL has gained a lot of viewers in the Spanish speaking world as well.
And the Super Bowl is going to be in California, which has a big, Latin population.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting because I don't know really what to expect. Because I've never watched any of his live acts. The music doesn't really stand out to me whenever I listen to it. So I'm curious to see what he does. I'm curious to see if he makes any political statements, because given what's happened, you're never going to have more eyes on you than you're going to have tomorrow night. So we'll see what Bad Bunny does, because he's Puerto Rican. So we'll see what he does with this particular show. And I agree, Gus. I would love to see Taylor Swift do it, but I think it's completely up to her whether or not she wants to do it or not. I'm sure if she went to the NFL and said, I want to do the halftime show, the Super Bowl would let her do the halftime show 100%.
I think she's being foolish by then snobbing on the National Football League and the biggest stage an artist can do. Like, I think then if your theory is true, then if I am Taylor Swift, I'll be like, hey, I definitely want to be, because then she'll be reaching. I know, oh my god, she's one of the biggest artists in the West, but the platform is really big. I don't know. I
And if
still feel it.
and if you crush that show, it defines your legacy. Like, think
Yeah.
about Prince. Like, when you talk about Prince, his halftime show comes up with pretty quickly in terms of reasons why he's amazing.
How
Because
about
he's
how about even Michael Jackson?
yeah,
That performance he had in the early '90s as well in the Super Bowl halftime show. That was a defining legacy moment for him.
yeah, like, I grew up thinking Lady Gaga wasn't very good, and then I saw her Super Bowl show, and I'm
How
like,
about
"Okay,
How about Katy Perry? How
yeah,
about Katy Perry too?
that show was fun."
That performance was a defining moment for her career for sure.
Yeah, and Bruno Mars and Beyonce were all fantastic. Some of my least favorite ones are, like, Maroon 5, that one was not good. It was just and then they try to shoehorn in Travis Scott. The Black Eyed Peas, they weren't very good. So, and I honestly, Rihanna a few years ago, I wasn't a huge fan of. I thought the show was kind of boring. And granted, she was pregnant, so like she couldn't do a lot of like crazy
Uh,
acrobatics.
Usher was good.
Oh yeah, Usher was yeah. Um, Usher was good. I kind of forgot he did it, but he was pretty good. And I shouldn't have forgot he did it because he's literally a Chattanooga guy. But
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you literally did a story on the news about that.
yeah, I've done thousands of stories, so I can't remember all of them.
I remember. See, it
Yes,
shows.
you remember better than I do. And I'll tell you this: when it comes to halftime shows, so like in my free time, sometimes, so, like when I get really bored, I started like creating like alternate halftime show concepts for like different artists historically. So I created like these concepts for like the Beatles or like for like Queen or something like that. And what if like those artists during their prime in like the 70s and the 80s had halftime shows and they were being uber like political and stuff and controversial. So, Bad Bunny certainly has an opportunity to leave an impact tomorrow. So we'll see what he does with it. But obviously, we're a sports show and we're not a music show. It's always fun to get to talk music here. Because the only time we really get to talk about music here
I,
on this.
I think I think it's because Super Bowl again. We definitely going to talk about the stuff's going to be on the field. That's kind of what matters. The matchup between the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. But again, the Super Bowl is a sporting event that transcends sports. It's a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, it is a national holiday. It is the single biggest event frankly in Western civilization on an annual.
Yeah. The World Cup final still tops that for
Okay,
me.
that's not on an annual basis.
Yeah, okay. The annual basis, I agree. But in terms of sports wise, nothing tops the World Cup final. Nothing.
I would
Nothing.
agree with that. I would agree with that. But
Yeah.
in terms of on a yearly basis, nothing's bigger than the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I using your that premises, I agree.
Yeah. So let's get to the game here. New England Patriots, Seattle Seahawks. You mentioned that Katy Perry performance. That was at the halftime of the last time these two teams played in the Super Bowl. One of the greatest Super Bowl games we have ever seen. Of course, everyone remembers the iconic finish to that game on the goal line. Seattle has Beastquake and Marshawn Lynch, but they decided to pass the ball with Russell Wilson, and he throws it to Malcolm Butler for the interception. The iconic reaction by Richard Sherman, just distraught because the Seahawks were about to go back to back, and New England denied them.
And how about the Tom Brady reaction, jumping like a little boy?
Yeah, because you got to remember at that point, that was their first ring in 10 years.
Yeah, that was. It's so funny how that Super Bowl defined the legacy of both franchises. Because if the Seattle Seahawks win, they will continue. I wouldn't say they would be a three-peat or whatever, but if they won, they probably would continue, kind of dominating the mid 2010s. And as you point out perfectly, even though the Patriots, had a great roster and was a great franchise. They were on a 10-year drought with 2 Super Bowl losses. So if they would have lose that one, it's going to be the third one.
Yeah, It's pretty nuts because, like, if they don't win that one, right, does 28 free happen? Does the sixth ring for Brady happen? Like, they couldn't get to 5-6 without number 4. And unfortunately, the Kentucky has rallied. It's 57-55 with 9:25. So it's happening again, Gus.
Oh,
God. Let's see if Tennessee can hold on this time. Back to football.
but I think unlike that Super Bowl, this one I don't think the loser is gonna be affected or it's gonna be like the Seahawks never recover. I think both teams are. I think if as both franchises, they didn't expect to be on that big game.
No.
They probably won 1 or 2 years short. So for both of them making the Super Bowl with one with a really young quarterback and the other one was a you know a quarterback that was seemed like a bust, but I guess not. You know that makes it interesting.
Absolutely. I'm going to try to find my predictions I did back in the off season because I know I did them because I want to see if I picked either one of these teams to even be in the playoffs, let alone in the let alone the Super Bowl. Because I know I didn't have either one of these teams in the Super Bowl. But
Yeah, even when we made the picks for the playoff with both of them in, we chose the I chose, for example, the LA Chargers over the Bears, and you chose 49ers over the Jaguars.
yeah, we did not believe in either one of these teams.
Yeah.
So while I look for that, you know, what would you, I guess? So I guess just when you think about this rematch, what are the first things that come to mind when you think about this version of New England versus Seattle?
I think more about the Seattle defense, which really is outstanding again. Like, look what they did with the 49ers twice, and the Patriots kind of had, of course, a lot of people have been pointing out that their schedule definitely made them possible to be there, but of course, in the postseason they crush it. But yeah, I think the Seattle defense definitely is going to be a major point in this game.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about that Seahawks defense versus the Patriots offense. Because, the Seahawks, when they won their Super Bowl and, made their second one right, they had the Legion of Boom. And this defense, while I'm not saying they're necessarily the Legion of Boom, they're pretty good. They're pretty, what Mike McDonald has done with this defense is pretty remarkable.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it feels like I'm gonna give even my prediction. I think the Super Bowl is gonna be like the one in 2013 in New York, 2014 in New York City. I think Seattle's gonna definitely dominate the defensive part, and it's gonna be like 30-16.
Ooh. So we're thinking, so you don't have a lot of faith in Drake May here.
No.
So basically, I guess, obviously for Drake May, right? This is only year 2 for him. I didn't, we didn't really expect him to be here. And to me, right, like Drake May has been okay this postseason. He hasn't necessarily lit it up. Like they've definitely been riding on the coattails of their defense. And obviously got lucky that Bo Nix got hurt for Denver.
Yeah, I think definitely that game in Denver. The path for the Patriots was a little bit of easy schedule and luck, so that's why I think they probably are 1 or even 2 years ahead. That's why I think Seattle is a more ready team.
Which is nuts to think because we're literally talking about the team with Sam Darnold as quarterback, which is unbelievable. We're talking about Sam Darnold as a starting quarterback in a Super Bowl. Who would have ever thought after he busted being with the Jets and started bouncing around as a backup quarterback. Of course, he got a chance to be the starter in Minnesota, played well there, landed him the opportunity in Seattle, and well, I mean, the rest of it's history. I mean, now granted, with the defense and the running game that this team has with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, it's not necessarily like Sam Darnold has to do everything on this team. But still, like to make the Super Bowl, your quarterback still has to do some things, right? Still has to do some good things. And Sam Darnold, especially against the Rams, played a very good game.
Yeah, I think I think Sam Darnold has been a really good stable quarterback because people tend to forget he has almost 10 years of experience in this league. Um, I feel like he only failed at the New York Jets, and to be honest, though, it's more on the Jets and on him. Because even when he went to Carolina and Minnesota, he wasn't bad. He was mid to good. When he found a franchise who really gave weapons to him and a good old line, he thrived. Like last year, we saw signs he was evolving. Like he did a good job in Minnesota.
Absolutely. And I know obviously the playoffs he didn't play well last year for them, but it's worked out ultimately for him in Seattle, and for Minnesota, they took a step back this year with JJ McCarthy. So you got to wonder if there's some remorse there for the Vikings. Although you can argue that JJ McCarthy got better throughout the season for Minnesota, so maybe there's long-term hope there. But I think Seattle's just a very well-constructed team, and Mike McDonald's a great coach when it comes down to it. And that's what it really feels like here. Like it doesn't feel like there's a ton of superstars in this game. Like you don't have your Patrick Mahomes, you don't have a Josh Allen.
Yeah, that's a great point. This Super Bowl feels a little bit empty. There's no star that is gonna attract like a non-football fan to the TV.
Right. There's no Travis Kelce. There isn't that type of star here. There are very, very good football players. For
But
those this is a football fans Super Bowl.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like this Super Bowl is for the football people, not for the casual sports fan or even casual, uh, viewer.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of the Thunder's Pacers last year in the NBA finals. Because that was really SGA is a superstar now, and Tyrese Halliburton is a superstar. But they were just kind of born becoming superstars in that postseason.
Yeah. Shout out to my friend Claudio Miro Pedro saying good morning, even because yeah, here in Brazil is already 12:30, and he is watching us. Thank you so much from Limeira, Sao Paulo, Brazil. But back to the Super Bowl, yeah, but the only thing that is for the Patriots, I feel like it's the coaching matchup because Mike Vrabel really did a turnaround, and you can say even better than I do because he coached your Tennessee Titans. I think if there's one thing the Patriots have going for them is the coaching matchup.
I think in defense too. Like I think the Patriots defense, you say that the Seahawks defense is going to show the Patriots offense. I think the Patriots could do the same thing to the Seahawks. Because here's the thing one thing that Bill Belichick was always really good at was zeroing in on the team's best opposing player. And for the Seahawks, that is Jackson Smith-Njigba, who just won Receiver of the Year. He's been incredible this year. If the Patriots can take away JSN, that we could see a defensive slugfest here in this game. I think for the Patriots, that is the way, right? Like if you can make this a low-scoring game like 10-7 or something, 13-7, that's how the Patriots can win this game. Make it like the 2018 Super Bowl, which I don't personally want because that was not a fun football game to watch. But I have a feeling this is going to be that kind of game where special teams are going to be massive. Like what punter plays better? Can you make your kicks? Like I think there'll be, if it's a low scoring game, then it's going to come down to like 2 to 3 really big mistakes and who makes them. Because I don't think either team is breaking above the 20s here. I wouldn't be shocked if the winner of this game is only in the teens. And really turnovers, and what the thing that New England has been good at this entire postseason has been turnovers. Like, look what they did to Justin Herbert, to CJ Stroud, what they did in the AFC title game with Jared Stidham. They have been very opportunistic, and that is a credit to Mike Vrabel, who the Titans are still idiotic for firing.
Yeah. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. Yeah, so I really think, I ask players with much pressure, but like this isn't because I think probably there's more pressure on Darnold, I would say, just because he's much older than Drake May. But I don't necessarily think there's more here, but definitely I would lean Darnold over May just for a pure experience, although I think May will be a lot better than Darnold when it's all said and done. I don't know
Yeah.
what take.
So, what is your prediction of scoring winner?
I am going to go 16-10. I'm going to roll with the Seahawks to find a way to pull it off.
So I guess Patriots fans are happy because we're, not good with predictions, with the this NFL season. So Patriots fans, if you guys are, maybe having something to cheer on, is me and Nick picking the Seahawks. We're not very good on picking this NFL season.
We are definitely not. So congratulations to the Patriots for winning the Super Bowl. Anyway, those are our picks. Super Bowl is tomorrow night at 6:30, 20 hours from now. Some other quick NFL news. Speaking of the Titans, we've hired Gus Bradley as DC, which I just think is a terrible move. He was not a good DC for the Colts, was a bad head coach for the Jaguars. So I'm not really excited there, although with Robert Saleh as the head coach, I would assume Saleh is going to be the main mastermind behind the defense anyway. And obviously Brian Dable is a much more important hire at head coach or at offensive coordinator. And it looks like, Frank Reich to the Jets, guys. So what do you think about that?
I mean, he didn't do a good job in Indianapolis. Definitely, Jason can, analyze him better than I do. He wasn't a big fan of him, but I hope he improves the offense. Definitely, and something Aaron Glenn pointed out, Frank, has a great combination with experience, creativity, and calm under pressure. So if Aaron Glenn trusts him, hopefully the Jets will improve their offense.
Well, I guess the first question is, who's the quarterback going to be?
Yeah, that's why they need to get the OC quick, because now they're gonna have to figure out, are they gonna move up the draft, which I don't think they're gonna do because this class, doesn't look that promising, or they're gonna trade.
And Raiders, I mean, they're pick 2. The Raiders aren't going to leave pick 1, I think, for Mendoza.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was gonna say, outside of Mendoza, I don't see any promising quarterback on that class.
I mean, the second best quarterback is probably Ty Simpson.
Yeah, which had an average to a little bit above average, career in the college.
Yeah, only really had 1 year starting.
Yeah, and the Vols are about you. Let's go.
Good play, Nate.
What a layup.
Yeah, of course. They're holding on here 64-61. That was on an offensive rebound there by Nate Ament. Man, why do they got to make this stressful against Kentucky every time? All right. But yeah, I do think Reich is a decent hire. The problem with the Jets are the quarterback situation is just so bad because the Justin Fields situation was such a whiff. The Aaron Rodgers situation was such a whiff. I mean, it just seems like the Jets can't get it right. And then even when you draft a guy like Sam Darnold, who has shown us he's capable of making the Super Bowl, he just can't do it with the Jets. So I don't know. It seems like the Jets are just in eternal misery.
Oh my god, it's gonna be like what 16 years without even making the playoffs.
I mean, with an additional playoff spot too. Like half the teams in the conference make the playoffs now, and they just can't do it. I mean, it really defies the odds. But that's the Jets for Hopefully, soon the Jets will have a new owner. Maybe. Well, one of these days.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of old owners, though, the Cowboys have franchise tagged George Pickens, which I think is a good move. I mean, George Pickens had a very good season for Dallas. Of course, that was the big thing for Dallas is improving their defense, but their offense is in a very good spot with Dak and CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens.
Yeah. And speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, they're gonna start their season in Brazil, but not in Sao Paulo. It's gonna be in Rio de Janeiro, in Maracanã. The date of the game and the opponent wasn't confirmed, but the Dallas Cowboys is gonna play in Rio. So Rio de Janeiro is gonna be the football capital of Brazil because they're hosting a college football game and then the NFL. So I guess I knew if the NFL and football eventually was gonna move to Rio. I thought two back-to-back games in Sao Paulo was too good to be true. I think Rio is a more kind of tourist, international kind of city. So
yeah, I mean, because most people when they think of when you ask the average American, what's the biggest city in Brazil? They're going to be like Rio, and I'm like, well, no, that's not true. It's Sao Paulo, but that's the first city anyone thinks about. The average American thinks about when it comes to Brazil. So it kind of makes sense with the carnival and Copa on, all that. I feel like I just pictured that.
So the schedule's going. So the I guess it's going to be an opener. I think they're going to keep that September kind of date. I don't think they're going to put this game like in October, November. I think it's going to be an opener.
Yeah.
Hope maybe the Tennessee Titans. Maybe finally it's going to be the Tennessee Titans. Finally.
I don't think they're going to put us in that type of spot. Remember, the Tennessee Titans didn't get a single primetime game this year.
Yeah.
So,
or maybe the Falcons.
Maybe the Falcons with Michael Penix. I am assuming a quarterback because it won't be Kirk Cousins because they're cutting Kirk Cousins. What a waste of contract that was.
That was a never good fit. I think Cousins and the Falcons was a marriage that felt like was never going to work.
Yeah, and when it comes to Penix, do we believe in Penix long term? Do you think he's going to be a long term franchise quarterback for Atlanta? But how's that not a foul, man? Sorry,
but they missed the layup.
All don't lie.
But just to my point is when they draft Michael Penix, that was a obvious sign he was going to be the future one, and Cousins is going to be a bridge quarterback. So that decision by the Falcons to cut Cousins, that was something inevitable.
Yeah, freaking Rick Barnes is going to fall out over there. He's so. I mean, because we're being so lackadaisical on offense right now. There's so many turnovers. This is just frustrating. This is what I was talking about earlier with Jacoby Gillespie not being a true point guard. I mean, we're fumbling the ball everywhere. Now, kind of back to the Falcons real quick. Unfortunately, speaking of a former Vol, some news has just come out this evening that former Vol James Pierce has been arrested on a domestic violence incident. Apparently, he led police on a police chase. This occurred in Florida. This, according to news station WPLG in Miami, they said that Pierce, that the Doral, Florida Police Department went to a reported dispute between a male and female. Pierce fled the scene and later crashed before being placed in handcuffs. So he literally led on a police chase. Pierce is being charged with 2 counts of aggravated battery with a deadly weapon, 1 count of aggravated stalking and fleeing or eluding police with lights and a siren. And apparently, the situation I saw was the news station is saying that the woman in dispute was WNBA star Rakea Jackson, who also played for the Lady Vols. So literally one of the best Tennessee defensive linemen we've ever seen in James Pierce with a very, very good Lady Vols player in Rakea Jackson. And apparently it has gone south here, unfortunately. And this is just horrible, right? Like, because these are both guys that Tennessee fans really, love, right? Like, I mean, a very well respected, obviously one of the most beloved Tennessee football players of the last 5 years in James Pierce, and a very well respected Lady Vols basketball player. And this just sucks. I mean, obviously, we don't know like the full extent of the situation. We don't know what's true, what's not true. These are all allegations. But man, it really does suck, and hopefully investigators can get to the bottom of this quickly, find out what's true, what's not true. And if Pierce did do this, obviously he needs to serve prison time, right? Like, because there's no excuse ever to lay your hands on a woman.
I agree with you 100%. There's, we'll see what the investigation kind of, shows, but, that kind of, there's no justification for that.
Yeah, and if it is true and he ends up like having to go to prison for a long time, I mean, that's basically effectively the end of his career, at least for the time being, which would be just very sad because, I mean, Pierce is an amazing talent. I mean, he was a rookie defensive player of the year this year, had an amazing rookie year. Obviously, he was great at Tennessee, was going to be a long-term star defensive player in the league, but it just goes to show you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have everything aligned, spiritually, faithfully, like you can throw it all away in one moment, like we saw with Henry Ruggs. It's just as a reminder to any young athlete that comes across this, it doesn't matter how much talent you have. It's all about the type of person you are.
That's a great point. Shout out to my great friend, great radio personality, Vinicius Júnior, grande Vini Júnior. Watching the podcast. He comment here. Big Tomazelli, great rainy night for all of us. He works at the radio station Brazil FM in Santa Barbara do West. Great guy, great person. But yeah, back to the football side of things. That unfortunately there's another player who got an issue with the law.
Yeah, and this one is going to be a story that I'm going to be very heavily covering because it happened here in the Chattanooga area, but technically, more specifically in our suburb of Ottawa. Former first-round pick Darren Lee, he played at Ohio State, was a part of the 2014 National Championship team, and then went on to be drafted in the first round by the New York Jets, played there for 3 years, went to a couple of different teams, was out of the league by 2021. And unfortunately, he has been arrested on first-degree murder and tampering of evidence in a situation involving a woman at a Ottawa home. So I haven't gotten a chance to get my hands on the affidavit because this thing dropped very late last night on a Friday, so I can't really call for it until Monday. There's still a lot I don't really know about the incident here. He's going to be in court on Wednesday morning. But definitely just once again, right, like first-round draft pick, a guy with a lot of talent in the world, and it, obviously don't know what's true, what's not true, we'll see what the investigation brings out, but obviously this is a story that's being picked up by national outlets. So it's going to be one of those stories that unfortunately will put Chattanooga in the national spotlight for all the wrong reasons. And it just sucks to see stuff like this. And obviously for all the latest coverage, follow me. I'll be doing a lot of coverage for News 12. I know my colleague Lillian Nee is doing some stuff this weekend, so just follow us at News 12 and WDF News 12, and we'll keep you updated.
Best TV station in Chattanooga.
You're damn right about that. Tell some lighter news. Roger Goodell had some interesting comments this week at Super Bowl Media Week, the State of the NFL, where he's talking about college football. And Roger Goodell I'm going to pull up this quote here because it is super fascinating. Because obviously we have seen a lot of conversations about the state of college football with eligibility and what's going on. So here's what Roger Goodell said. Quote, there's obviously a lot of change going on and a lot of disruption. They do need to bring some clarity to that. And I think that's something that if for some reason we could be helpful for the right people, we would be willing to engage with anybody. But I think we try to stay in our lane unless we are invited in to be a part of the solution. We keep a close eye on this. I think our eligibility rule is really good for young men who play our sport. It gives them a chance to mature and get an education, which will benefit them for a lifetime. I also think the rules develop stars. They come in as stars, and I think the strength of college is something that I think is good for all of us, and that we like working with college football.
That's the key sentence. That's the key point that I was going to point out. What Roger Goodell understand and Adam Silver failed to understand is that college athletics, especially college football for the NFL and college basketball for the NBA, they need to be connected with the leagues, had a strong partnership to give the best talent. Because Roger Goodell saw what happened to basketball, to how kind of Adam Silver manipulating, and even kind of helping to weaken college basketball with promoting one and done, to kind of say to the players, get paid, leave early, go to the G League. Roger Goodell are just kind of watching the situation so the talent there doesn't get lost in the process and doesn't arrive ready for the NFL. That's, I think, the only thing that he's worried about.
Right. And I think the other thing that some people are worried about, right? Like, so we saw the whole situation with Charles Bedico over at Alabama, right? He had played some games for the NBA G League and was allowed to come back to Alabama. And I think there's some worry that we could see a situation where what if like a football player declares for the draft, goes through the draft process, maybe he gets undrafted and decides to come back to college football for one more year. Is that the type of situation that college football should allow? Or the NFL should allow?
Yeah, that's why they both, and that's why the NFL gets frustrated. There's no, like, who Roger Goodell is going to sit on with the commissioner of all the conferences, NCAA president. Like, that's what the NFL is worried about. There's no entity, there's no person that represents an entity that can really strengthen and make clarity of this.
I mean, that's very true. Like, we know who the head of the NFL is. We don't know who the head of college football is. And that's kind of the issue. So it's fascinating to hear him say those comments. And, the NFL is, because I saw a situation where one of the quarterfinal games next year is being moved up a day to the 30th to avoid competing directly with an NFL Thursday night football game.
I thought that was so low. How the playoffs are worried about a Thursday night game. And I understand it was like a playoff to playoffs, but I don't know. I feel like it was unnecessary.
I feel like the NFL should voluntarily make a little room for college football in those instances.
Yeah, but again, I think they would, but they don't have somebody to sit down and make that negotiation. Like, again, who's Roger Goodell's going to sit down with to strengthen that partnership? Who?
I mean, that's a good point. It just goes to show that the NFL runs everything, and college football is just kind of running scared. Now, speaking of college football, Joey Aguilar of the Vols, he has gotten a restraining order this week against NCAA, so he's technically right now allowed to be at Tennessee, but like the case still isn't over. So we're still kind of in limbo, and it's a weird case because I think there's a lot of people who are hoping he doesn't get it because of the precedence that it would set for college athletics as a whole. But obviously for Tennessee fans, I think there's a lot of folks hoping that he does get it because obviously it would be nice to bring back an experienced quarterback. Now, I've obviously talked about how I think Joey Aguilar has his deficiencies, and I'm not sure how much one offseason would change him, but it's just a fascinating situation here. And Gus, are you hoping that he gets to come back?
I mean, I feel like he would have finally have a full off season. Remember, he was brought up in the middle of a controversy, in the middle of a you know in the middle of a crazy time with Nico, and I think he did a good job as he could. But I think having a full off season, working on his deficiencies, he gets Heupel's offense. I think for Tennessee will be good. But yeah, but setting the precedent can be dangerous as well in college athletics.
Well, unfortunately, Kentucky has taken a lead here, 68-67, 120 remaining in this game. So just the offense has gone. We scored 47 in the first half. We've only scored 20 here. Just the offense has been abysmal here in the second half, which unfortunately it's been a kind of a story at times under Rick Barnes. And Nate Mint trying to go one-on-one to the hole. Yes. Let's go, Nate. Vols take a 69-68 lead here with under a minute to go. And we're about to go into the NBA here. They're going to take a timeout, 49.9 seconds to go. So you're going to hear a live reactions here to the end of this Tennessee-Kentucky game. Vols trying to split the season here. Kentucky going for the season sweep. So in the NBA, we saw a pretty interesting trade deadline with probably the two biggest names were Giannis Antetokounmpo and Ja Morant. A lot of discussion that they might get traded. Neither one did. And when it comes with the Giannis, the big thing is here he's owed $53 million a year. And I kind of thought maybe the Knicks would be willing to do it, but they were going to have to give up a lot to sign Giannis. Or to trade for him, and I guess they just decided it wasn't worth it. But do you think the Knicks should have gone for it? Because they probably would have had to trade guys like OG Anunoby. They probably would have had to have traded Josh potentially.
I think the New York Knicks now has a new direction that kind of don't wanna get trapped by a player. You literally described the situation like when New York got Carmelo. They had to give up a lot. They don't want to do that again.
Yeah, I think that's smart. As what we've seen, the way to go is you have to build teams now. Superstars are just not going to automatically win you championships in the NBA.
Yeah, I think the finals last year just proved that getting a couple superstars and you're set is over. Now we have the build a strong roster. Find maybe one or two European players that still not in their prime. You build the team, not buy the team.
Oh, 100%. So I think that's why you're seeing these trade deadlines not be as nuts. And then also team chemistry. That's why a guy like Ja Morant didn't get traded at all. With all of his off-field antics, I don't blame teams for not wanting him. I think Kendrick Perkins, who I don't necessarily agree with a ton, said it best. Where if Ja Morant doesn't change himself in 2 years, he may not find himself on our roster.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just the reality that when you don't develop as a person, doesn't matter the talent, you don't survive in any pro sports league.
Yeah, Kentucky just hit a free to take the lead with 32 seconds. So it's 71-69, and we're going to take a timeout here. 27 seconds. Frustrating. Okay. Probably the biggest trade that happened, though, was the trade between the Cavs and the Clippers. James Harden was traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers to pair up with Donovan Mitchell, and Darius Garland was sent to the Los Angeles Clippers. I'm going to be honest. I don't like this trade for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think Garland is really, really good. And I get that Harden is really good as well, and obviously has been an MVP Harden's 36. I don't think this makes Cleveland a championship favorite. I really don't. I think the Cavs are going to regret giving up the star.
And it's so funny at that point, how the big three, Westbrook, Harden, and Durant, that really, had a great start back in OKC, is bouncing around the league. Of course, Durant was the most successful of all, winning the rings with Golden State, but they are the players who are bouncing the league. And again, Harden has a ton, but he's aging quick.
Right. Hey, shout out to Durant, though. His team did beat OKC in OKC today with the Houston Rockets. So there is that. An interesting trade, too, that happened between the Grizzlies and the Jazz. The Grizzlies traded away Jaren Jackson Jr. to Utah, despite not trading away John Morant, which didn't really make sense here. Like, the Grizzlies are kind of tanking. And for the Utah Jazz, like, this seems like a move of a team that's trying to compete, but they're not in a competitive position at all. This move really confused me for both teams.
Yeah, it was kind of the move that didn't put anyone worst or better.
Yeah, just very weird. And Tennessee, Nate missed a really hard shot there. I don't really like that look. Like, get to the basket here. I mean, it's a nice pick and roll by Okpara. And I don't know why he's trying to spin around there. Like, just go to the rim. Like, don't. And that's kind of some of the stuff that you were seeing from earlier in the year. And I guess that's just, I don't know. There. So we'll see if Kentucky hits these free throws. So the last trade I wanted to bring up was the Pacers trading for center from the Clippers. And this effectively is their Miles Turner's replacement from last year. And of course, the Pacers obviously are not competitive this year since Tyrese Halliburton's out for the year. But I think that this move is very good for the Pacers. They still have a top 4 pick next year. So they could get a very high quality prospect. And assuming that Halliburton can come back anywhere close to what he was in the postseason last year, Kentucky missed the last free throw. Okay, all right, find a good look. Are we going to take a timeout? We're going to take a timeout. 8 seconds left. Vols down by 3. So the Vols are going to have to find a free here. Of course, Kentucky could foul, and I think Kentucky should foul here to send us to the free throw line, make it harder for us. Yeah, I guess, but I think, I like where the Pacers are at, even with this year being a down year because of the Halliburton injury. Because I think Halliburton's going to come back. He's going to be really good, and the Pacers are going to be right back to being contenders.
Yeah, it's an interesting move, and definitely they want to kind of wait for Halliburton to, be back on the court and, see what they can do next year.
Absolutely. The last thing here is NASCAR started off their season with a chaotic clash at Bowman Gray Stadium, which was just played by weather. It was supposed to be last Sunday, but it got delayed all the way to Wednesday due to a major snowstorm. And even on the night they raced, had to deal with sleet. Ryan Preece won the race, so good for him. That was his first Cup win, although technically it wasn't a points race. It was so chaotic. There's not a lot you can take from it. They go to Daytona next week. Daytona 500 is next week to begin the full regular season. And, of course, that one's always a wild card. I don't know who's going to win. If I had to pick a name, I'm picking Brad Keselowski winning for Greg Biffle. But, yeah, that is all we have in the American section. Of course, we're about to see the end here of this Tennessee game as the Vols are about to end with 8.6 seconds left. It looks like we're going to have Nate Ament inbound it. I don't know if we want to go straight into Brazil. We just want to call the end of this first. So Nate Ament.
Let's call the end of it. You're a little bit ahead of me, so you're kind of spoiling me, but it's fine.
Yeah, so I don't know why Ament's passing it in. Why are we passing it into Estrella? And Estrella gets fouled. Like, why? like, I don't understand this. Like, you have your best shooter, the best overall offensive player, passing it in to a big man who's not a good free throw shooter. Like, that's just dumb. Like, at least if you're gonna have a mid pass it in to Gillespie. He's your best 3-point shooter. Like, but like the ball there should either be in Gillespie's hands or Amon's hands. So now you got a guy who's not a great free throw shooter. Okay, he made the first one, so that's good. You're not in a position where you have to, miss this intentionally. So you can hit this one and see if you can get another steal or at least force him to go back to the free throw line. But that inbound, that's just not a good inbounds play. Like, why is Ament passing the ball in? Estrella gets the second one. A lot of bodies hit the floor. I don't know what the call is there because I don't have the volume on. So I don't know if we're going back to the other end for free throws or whereas the score now is 72-71. All right, so I think we're going to let them play on, I guess. Yeah. So Tennessee obviously is going to press here. So first things first, try to get the steal. If you can't get the steal, then foul. So see what they got. All right, foul. All right, we're going to foul number 5 for Kentucky. That's Chandler. So 7.3 seconds remaining. And it's still just in the bonus. So, like, if Kentucky misses the first free throw, then we would be able to potentially rebound that and maybe score a game-winning basket. But at the very worst, Colin Chandler, who's an 86% free throw shooter, if he hits both, at least you're going to have potentially another shot out of 3, assuming Kentucky doesn't foul you. Which, again, when you're up by 3, you should always foul late. So Kentucky should not let us get a shot off if they're smart. So what Chandler does. First free throw. He misses it. Oh, no, but Kentucky gets the rebound. And they're going to go back to the line. We're 3.7 seconds now. Man, that sucks. Because 4 seconds went off the clock there on the offensive rebound. So now it's going to be a little more chaotic. Man, just Amari Evans just got beat there on the baseline. Just little things like that, man. They determine how a game goes. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be another. Okay, so Denzel Aberdeen, number 1. He was really big in the first game against us in Knoxville, so he hits the first one. 73-71. So Kentucky's going to kind of bring all their guys back. So if we miss, or if they miss, I wonder if they're going to miss intentionally. We don't have a timeout. So if you miss intentionally, then we don't have a chance to really set up an inbounds play, you know? Well, he's going to hit it. So 74-71, we're not going to have a ton of time here to really get a really good shot. All right, Okpara gets it. Gillespie from half court. Oh, and it rattles in and out, and Kentucky wins.
Yeah, so we talked about in this podcast how the Vols had great leads at the half with Kentucky and, ended up losing. Oh, man, it went so close.
And so in the first half, you saw what the potential of this team is. And in the second half, you saw what happens when with the low end, what the worst case scenario looks like for this Tennessee team, Yeah, and that's exactly why I don't necessarily expect them to do much in March. They're in a nutshell. Because there is potential here, a lot of potential with this team. But man, letting Kentucky do that to us twice sucks. Because that's the biggest game of the year for us. So that's a hard one. That's a hard one, Gus. But anyway, but for to make it a little bit happier, right? Because obviously that Tennessee's losing that section. Hey, Rio Branco, you guys finally got your first win today. I know it's been a rough start of the season for y'all. Talk about Rio Branco getting a dub.
First win since late March, first win of the season because Rio Branco, remember, they played the Paulista Cup, did not win a single game. They were the last team, and and before that, in the third division of the state of Sao Paulo Championship, they went all the way to the semifinals, did not get promoted, but lost both games in the semifinals. So the last game they won was the quarterfinals, the second leg of the quarterfinals last March. So after I'll say 10 months, 16 games, we finally got a W in the game. The goal scored in the 90th minute by G, the by Diego Lazzari. Was a very good up Diego Lanzarini. Was a great cross by Lucas Lima. He got the opportunity. The crowd was fantastic today. 1,044 fans showed up. They supported it, even though it was a tough game, kind of like very hard to get in. And what's funny is that in the other side, and on the other side, the coach and the assistant coach were part of Rio Branco's title in 2024. Rafael Pereira, Paulista current head coach, was Rio Branco's head coach in 2024 title, and Paulista assistant coach Rafael Delevedove was Rio Branco's soccer analyst. So definitely from the front office, it was a really good win, especially with all that off the field kind of drama. And Rio Branco is out of the relegation zone, but still 2 points behind the qualification zone. Another home game on Wednesday against União São João. Hopefully the team can get better because despite the win, the performance wasn't good. A lot of issues in the midfield. They couldn't create a lot of opportunities, but a win is a win. Very needed. So, we're still alive in the A3. Last but not least, the Sao Paulo State Championship, week 7. So Ponte Preta, the last year had a phenomenal season. They had finally won a national tournament in their history, winning the third division of the Brazilian Championship. But a couple of months after that, they didn't organize themselves financially, had a lot of issues, a lot of off. I could tell before their season started they're going to be relegated because Rio Branco was supposed to play a practice game that was canceled due to players leaving the roster because of payment issues, because the players weren't getting paid, or the players who were arriving didn't feel confident in the front office to keep the honoring the contracts. And Ponte Preta is the first team relegated to the second division of the state of Sao Paulo. They were relegated back in 2022, so they're going to be back in the second division of the state of Sao Paulo Championship after 4 years. So the other spot, Santos needs to win tomorrow to avoid relegation, because if they tied and Velo Clube wins, then it's going to be a interesting last week in the regular season. And I almost forgot, it's so confusing. The Brazilian Championship is in week 2. For me, it's still weird though, because in Brazil, for since soccer has been professionalized in Brazil, you have the state tournaments, then the national tournaments. You wait for the state tournaments to end to start the national. the Brazilian championship in the first and second division, especially. But since the season has a tight schedule due to the World Cup, kind of taking up 2 months, so they had to start the Brazilian championship in late January. So in week 2, you have Bragantino, the only team who won twice, and Palmeiras in second place because of a 5-1 win over Vitória. But the team who is really worried about, again, Santos tied on Wednesday but lost to Chapecoense. But Santos fans, they're protesting the front office, the president, even though they got Gabriel Barbosa, Gabigol, and they're still waiting on the Neymar to come back, they are the fans who are most worried about. Because remember, last season, they avoided relegation on the last week for the second division nationally. So we'll see about that. The drama unfolds, but again, great for Rio Branco to win, and that's kind of wrapping up the Brazilian soccer.
Absolutely, and y'all definitely needed that win because it was rough seeing y'all struggle there at the beginning of the season and seeing y'all at the bottom of the table. I'm like, God, we all need to get it going. I don't want to see y'all get relegated.
No, God, no. But the thing is, I don't know if in American sport there's any parallel. So I was kind of part of it because since last year in the Paulista Cup, I went from the booth to the field. I remember I used to broadcast the games at the YouTube channel Rio Branco, kind of like a radio broadcast. And I was like, I'm gonna go on the field, record the goals and everything. And since then, Rio Branco did not win a single game. And today, 30 minutes before the game, the Rio Branco front office, the president, the director, they're like, Gustavo, today let's try something. Stay on the booth, and then they won. So now the drama is
you're going to be in the booth for them from now on, I think.
Yeah, that's I think what they're gonna decide. We'll see about that. But if me not being on the field to help the teams on the field, then that's what matters.
It's just crazy how stuff like that happens, and I'm glad that you got that dub.
Yeah,
You got the most important one for you today, and that's what matters. Vamos Tigre.
but I bet in American sports they would have done something like that. America, sports team, they build kind of like especially in baseball. Baseball can see a sport where something like that would have definitely be kind of take something like kind of mystic kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would. I mean, there's all kinds of little traditions and stuff that, like the cowbells of Mississippi State or whatever. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, I think that is all the time that we have tonight on this Two Countries, Two Americas All Sports. I'm smiling through the pain after blowing yet another game against the Kentucky Wildcats. Hey, maybe we'll get to see them in the March Madness because, hey, we lost to them both times last year in the regular season, but we won the game that matters. It does not matter that Rick Barnes is 1-4 against Mark Pope. He won the one game that mattered. But for Gus Almazelli from Victoria's Americana, I'm Nick Hill from Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. Enjoy the Super Bowl tomorrow. Stay safe. Do not drink and drive. If you do drink, have a designated driver. And have a fantastic week.